Good afternoon, sports fans. This is George with Custom Tied Flies and Guide Service. And this afternoon, boys and girls, I am going to fulfill one of my clients' wishes. He asked me a couple of times about mohair leeches. We got him some mohair, and excuse me. I saw a nifty pattern for a mohair leech. That it's actually like a mohair leech, woolly booger looking thing that a gentleman put up. And don't get me wrong, it's a great video, and I can't remember the guy's name. But if you go to YouTube and just put in mohair leech, you'll get all kinds of different tutorial videos, and I'm just going to add one to them. So, excuse me. This is going to be the custom tied mohair leech booger, you want to call it that. Excuse me. I'm going to tie it on a Mustad 79-580 number 6 hook, and I put a black 4.2 millimeter brass bead on it, and I bent down my hook point, my barb. I'm going to tie this with brown thread so you can kind of see how it's going together. But in order to get my bead not to move around, I put a buildup of thread right behind the eye, and then slide the bead up on it. We're going to take a minute to talk about hook eyes while I'm here. So here I'm leaving this hook eye down instead of bending it flat, or instead of using a flat hook eye. And I'm leaving it down because when I put my tippet in here and pull on it, the down hook eye is going to have a camming effect, and it's going to make the streamer rise up and fall back down. If I just had it straight, it would just pull straight through. So, also he asked about using a whip finisher. So here's a whip finish tool. There's the thread. You lay the whip finish tool straight flat on the thread. Okay, you push down and bring the thread up, and then allow the whip finish tool to turn. And then 1, 2, 3. And if you have this kind of whip finish tool, I mean, the same thing applies. You take the whip finish tool, lay it right on the thread, push down and pull up so that it makes a triangle, and then 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to trim these tags off. And I hope I didn't make this too fat. No, I didn't. Good. Okay, and then I put a little dot of super glue on this thread right here and push the bead up on it. And then typically I let it sit off to dry and, you know, do another one or two. But in this case, I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to tie in my thread. I'm going to run my thread to the back and a little bit past the bend. Bring my thread, excuse me, right up, almost even with the point. And I have my marabou. Now, I find it easier to gauge where my marabou is going to land by wetting it. So I wet my marabou. Now, this is not going to be, these are marabou blood quills, and they typically are pretty fluffy on the ends. This one in particular is not, it's not even really even. So I know I'm going to have to put another one on here. But I gauge my marabou so that it's about a hook shank length, maybe a little longer. All right. I'm going to put that on there. Give it a couple turns of thread. And I'm going to take this other pretty fluffy marabou. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just kind of wet it down a little bit. You can use water or saliva. I like to use saliva because it's, you know, pretty accessible. I make a fair amount of it every day. And I just want to match those tips up. I'm going to bring these marabou feather I don't mind building a little bulk with it, so I'm just going to twist them, and I'm going to wrap them up the shank a little bit. Yeah, I'm not going to wrap them all the way up to right behind the bead, but like I said, I'm building a little bulk here. Trim those off and see how that ended up falling right behind the bead. I'm going to lash that down. Squeeze that marabou under the thread. And then I'm going to run the thread under the marabou. Over the top. Under the marabou again. And over the top. And under the marabou. And back towards me and over the top. So it kind of makes my tail stick up a little bit. But that's okay, because when it's wet, it's going to be up here doing its thing, instead of wrapping around my point and fouling the gap, which is bad. Okay, so next I'm going to take my mohair. This is hairline mohair in brown. Well, I have black, but this is a demonstration thing, so I'm just going to use what I got on my bench here. And I want to put the mohair in right on top of that body. I'm going to kind of put it off to the side down here while I run my thread forward. Now, if you're not using a bead and you're using lead instead, that's fine. You use, you know, depending on the size of the hook, whatever size lead you feel is comfortable to use. Just, you know, put a little weight in the body. Now you're going to stroke these fibers from the mohair back. Okay. And take a wrap. Stroke them back. Take a wrap. Stroke them back. Take a wrap. You want to keep doing that. Keep stroking them back. And wrapping. It's very important to stroke these fibers back because you want them to flow. Don't worry about them fouling that marabou down. You'll fix that after a bit. Just keep stroking them back and wrapping. Make sure you cover everything. If you think you're going to have a hard time covering stuff, you can put a shank cover on. Like, I don't know, put some wool or something, put some yarn in it. Now, there is no Palmer hackle on this. Maybe instead call it a marabou tail, mohair leech. I'm sure the fish, neither the fish nor the leech that you're trying to imitate is going to give a crap what you call it. I mean, bottom line, you're the guy behind the vise. You can do whatever you want. You can call it whatever you want. The only people that are going to give you a hard time about a pattern that you have is the people that you ask. You go on these groups and go, hey, I just made this. What do you think? Yeah, well, they're going to tell you what you think, so what they think. So you can't have thin skin. Go in there and ask a bunch of people who've been tying for 40 years, including a bunch of people that have been tying for 2 months that have, you know, the same or less amount of experience that you do, and they're trying to advise you on how to build a pattern. There's a certain kind of crazy with that. Okay. Take 3. And take 3 in front. Trim that sucker off. Take 4. All right, now we're going to do a wet whip on this. So take your head cement. I put mine in a fingernail polish bottle. At one point, this was a bottle of Lee Hard as Nails that I stole from my wife fair and square. In my defense, I went out and bought her another bottle of fingernail polish after she caught me with it. So, and that's where you get a wet whip. Okay, paint a little head cement on there, and that way you get a nice covering in your whole whip and not just in one spot, and you don't have to smear it all around. Oh, that's right, I told you I would use this one too. So here's this one, push down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ordinarily I would use a 5 and 3 whip finish on this, but I'm doing a wet whip, so okay. Now I'm going to take my boar brush and just comb those fibers out. You see how they're coming up off of that marabou? Take my boar brush and comb those fibers out. All right. Now, get it wet. Mat those things down. This is what your leech is going to look like when it's moving through the water. It's going to pulsate. So it's going to come up and go back down, come up and go back down. All right. Now, there are some folks that'll trim this up here so that it's kind of square. You see how much it kind of you know, when you tease it, see how it stands out like that? All right. I don't like all this other stuff out here, so I will just give it a little, not a lot. I don't want to give it a, you know, flat top or anything. I just want to kind of snip some of those unruly guys out so it kind of lays with a little better profile. So there you have it, a bead head mohair marabou leech. So please don't forget to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can find this stuff on you find my Custom Tied virtual fly shop on Custom Tire 02. That's CustomTyer 02 on Facebook. And you can find the Custom Tied virtual fly shop website at www.custom-tied.com. That's CustomTied.com. Have a splash. Don't forget the dash. This is George with Custom Tied Flies and Guide Service. Happy tying.